Growing up, you probably heard that becoming a millionaire is impossible unless you're an NBA star, a doctor, or some famous celebrity. In reality, it's mostly about time, consistency, and basic math. I'm not gonna sit here and just make it seem like becoming a millionaire is the easiest thing in the world to do because everyone's situation is different. But some people don't have any excuses not to retire a millionaire or at least become a millionaire some point in their lifetime before they retire. But in this video, I'll show you why making $1 million isn't as hard as you've been told. And I'll even show you the small steps you can take to completely change your future. Okay, these days people think that wealth just happens really fast because of all these cryptos coming out and all these meme stocks that are out right now. Heck, even casino culture's in it as well. But it's usually the result of small, boring decisions repeated over time. The earlier you start, the easier it gets because time multiplies money through compounding, and the formula goes principal multiplied by interest multiplied by time. A good example is if you're 20 years old right now and contribute $200 a month for 40 years, with a return of 10%, you'll have a little over $1 million by the time you're able to retire. But if you did this in a normal brokerage account, you could always pull out this money, and I feel like a lot of people don't really explain that very well. Because yeah, of course, a lot of people don't want $1 million when they're 60 years old, which it's still good to have that just in case you do actually get to that point, you know, because yeah, I mean, some people do live until they're about 80 something. So it's always good to have this in retirement. But let's run through another example. Let's say you want to start at 30. Let's say you just wanted to have the best time of your life in your 20s, you know, go to Turks and Caicos, do all that stuff. If you did the same exact thing, but just starting at age 30, you'd only have about 400,000. So that's a big difference. I don't know about you guys, but I think I'd rather just thug out, you know, starting early, investing that 200 monthly, because 400K ain't gonna do nothing by that time. But this just shows the power of time in the formula. The earlier you start, the less you have to invest and the easier it becomes. So something to take away from this data is becoming a millionaire isn't just about working harder. It's about starting soon and staying consistent with your investing and your saving. And 200 a month really isn't that much, especially if you're still living with your parents and going to school. And by the time you're graduated and living off on your own, you should be able to do more than 200 a month anyways. Staying below your means and not making stupid purchases can really just elevate this number too. Okay, now that we're done with the math part, now we gotta get into how millionaires actually build their wealth. So of course, just like I said, investing into stocks, ETFs, and retirement accounts. Now all this stuff I'm saying is not financial advice at all, just for educational purposes, but ETFs like VOO, QQQ, SEHD, they're all pretty good choices. The S&P 500 invests into the top 500 companies in the United States, and it's a go-to for many people. I have it in my portfolio and a million other people do as well. Basically the golden standard ETF. And with the diversification it has, it's not as risky as the other stocks since it does do the top 500 companies. And let's say a company like Apple just completely dogs it in the next 10 years. It will just get eliminated by a different company that's doing better than it. Retirement accounts are really good to have as well, like 401ks and Roth IRAs. These accounts, once you get to the age 60, you're able to just pull out any capital gains you have tax-free, which is very, very important. But of course, the drawback is having to wait until you're 60, which is why many people might go for the brokerage way. But that just depends on what you're trying to accomplish and your goals. If you're trying to retire earlier in like your 40s or something like that, then of course doing a brokerage would be the best way to go. If you plan on working until you're 60, then the Roth IRA is a good option, but you can only contribute about 7K to it a year because of how broken it is pretty much. Another thing millionaires do is increasing their income through side hustles, promotions, and skills. If you guys have a skill like graphic design or something like that, guys, exploit that skill immediately. You can make some really good money doing stuff like that, and it honestly is really good for your time as well. If you're busy, those jobs, you know, you can kind of do on your own, but you might have a due date, but other than that, it's pretty much on your own time. A good side hustle that I actually do is DoorDash, which it does suck because it has to use your car, which, you know, does add up a little bit with maintenance and gas. But for the most part, I use it and get an extra $50 to $100 a week from it. People do content creation as well. I don't personally get income from this channel, but once I do get income from this channel though, I guess you could add it as a side hustle as well. And the best thing about jobs like this though is it fits with your schedule. You know, some people might be like, oh, I need a second job, man, I'm not making enough money right now. But dang, man, like once you get to that point, you're just gonna get burnt out having to work all freaking day. If you're gonna have a side job or something like that, I would recommend doing something that fits with your time schedule. Right now I'm currently working a part-time job because I'm still in college, and it's a set schedule as well. I work Monday through Friday 3 to 6, so this is very flexible because I know which hours I'm gonna have, so I can do DoorDash in the evenings after work, before work, or not even do it if I'm just feeling lazy that day. So it's really good to just be able to actually have a side job that can fit with your schedule pretty much. Another thing that millionaires do is spending less than they make and reinvesting the rest of that. You know, some people might get a raise and they look at it as, oh, well, now I can spend more money. I can upgrade my car. I can buy this brand new house, everything like that. But the goal is you don't want to do that. Lifestyle creep is real. You know, my parents had the same thing. You know, they kept getting raises or getting new positions, and then they just wanted to buy a brand new car, and it always beats them up at the end. You know, most millionaires, they aren't really very flashy, if you can tell. They're just really consistent with their investing and all of that, and they'll have, you know, clothes from Walmart, stuff like that, and they won't eat out. You know, they'll cook meals at home that are way cheaper because you can meal prep. But just because you're making more money, guys, always keep in mind that you don't need to just be spending more money and splurging. It's, you know, it's good to actually pay yourself every once in a while, but you know, you can get out of hand and it can add up over time, and it's going to cost you in the end. A common lie many people are told is you need to be rich to invest, which is completely false. You can start with $5, $10, whatever you want to start with. You know, there's a lot of people on YouTube, you can watch videos, I've seen them, where people will invest like $5 a day, you know, because their logic is, you know, if you can go spend $5 on a cup of coffee, you know, you can put that in the market and they'll show results like for 5 years, and it's pretty good. Another thing that people are told is you need to time the market, which is completely false. Time in the market matters way more than that, and I just proved that with the math I showed you guys near the beginning of the video. We've had many downturns in the market, of course. You know, a recent one that just happened was that tariff situation, you know, COVID, and even in 2022. Now, stocks will drop about like 20% and maybe 30%, but it always just goes right back up eventually. So it's good to just stay in the market, you know, collect your dividends and all of that, and not panic selling whenever stuff goes down. But you know, when I see red in the market, my mouth just starts foaming, because that just makes me be able to buy more shares of the companies I love the most. And I just look at it as a very, very good discount, just like if you saw your favorite pair of shoes on sale. But you know, it's good to always be investing, you know, at least every day, maybe weekly, monthly, yearly, some cases. As long as you just keep on doing that, it's always good. You don't want to just have cash on the sidelines just waiting for a downturn in the market, because what happens if a downturn just never happens again? You're missing out on hundreds of thousands of dollars. That ideology just doesn't really work that well. Another common misconception is investing is risky. Now, investing can be very risky depending on what you're in. You know, things like crypto is very, very risky, and even meme stocks, you know, so it actually is kind of true somewhat. But if you do blue chip companies, you're not really risking very much. I mean, yes, there is still some risk to it, but you're not risking as much as if you put money into like Dogecoin, because you know, companies like Microsoft and Meta and Tesla, you know, they actually work so hard, and you know, they're a Mag 7 company, you know, they're proven, like they know how the business works, so it's just not very risky when you think of it like that. Investing into index funds are also one of the least riskiest things you can possibly do in the stock market. ETFs are also really low risk, especially stuff like S&P 500 that does the top 500 companies. You know, like all those companies aren't just gonna like decimate one day, which they may if there's like a doomsday, but you know, that might not even ever happen. Okay, now that we talked all the information, stuff like that, let's talk about getting started today. So now you want to go into your app store, whatever, or online, and download Robinhood, Fidelity, Charles Schwab, Vanguard, anything you really want. It's personal preference. I personally use Robinhood, but that's not financial advice at all. So you can start small with 50 or 100 month and pick index funds like VOO, VTI, or SCHD, since you know those are very low risk, and they're ETFs, so it's very diverse, and you're getting into a lot of companies that they all perform very well. You can automate your contributions too, so you don't even have to think about it if you go through your settings, and just learn to increase your income through skills or side projects like we talked about before. Reinvest your profits and just stay consistent. And starting early is your biggest cheat code. I'm 19 and I have decades of compounding ahead of me, and so do you if you start very young, even in your 20s. Just stay consistent and you will definitely become a millionaire if you just stay consistent at it and keep investing as you age. Well, I hope I was able to teach you guys something. This is stuff that needs to be taught in schools, I believe. And if this video opened your eyes, drop a like so it reaches more people, and comment your age. I want to see how you're planning to invest and how much time you actually have. I'm just curious about that as well, because I actually want to see how many of you guys are still in school, and tell me if you've been taught this before. And subscribe for more money and investing videos. I plan on doing more of these in the future, and I'm going to try to make it as simple as I can for y'all. But with all that being said, I hope you guys learned something, and peace out.